Hello, I'm here. I know that it's been a while. I know some of you have missed me, and some of you were probably thinking, boy, am I glad he's dead. Not dead just yet. It'll be fine. But anyway, I'm here to talk about something that I think definitely needs to be addressed, especially in the scientific community. Well, stop beating around the bush. Let's just get right into it. Now, for those who are wondering what the scientific method is, allow me to clarify. You make an observation, you ask a question, you form a hypothesis, you make a prediction, you do a test, or experimentation, and then you analyze the data and then you draw a conclusion. Am I right? Am I wrong? Along with the scientific method, there's also 6 criteria for science as well. Allow me to put that on screen right here and now. And as you can see right here, got consistent, observable, natural, predictable, testable, and tentative. Now you might be thinking, this is just a school paper. You can't use this. Well, apparently Google uses it. And this is to debunk the same people that would probably say that Google is your friend. And hey, even other media outlets like Newsweek would say that Google is somehow the most trusted name in news. Well, this is coming from a group of mockingbirds, so I guess that would make sense. Now, keep in mind, the truth is that I don't really trust Google that much either, considering that you can't even look up 2 cartoon characters without finding really stupid stuff. So, yeah. Also keep in mind that this is to point out contradictions in other people's ways of thinking about how they would approach this. I'm going to be pointing out a lot of inconsistencies regarding how the virus has been handled, what people say both on and off camera, and I want more people to understand what's going on so they might have an idea on what to do about it. So, there are 2 reasons why I can't put the videos up on my channel. 1 out of fear of being copyrighted, and 2 because I don't have the intellectual knowledge to do that. So, unfortunately, you'll have to take my word for it. I will quote everything and source it in the description, so there's no need to worry. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into what was stated. This is going to be a little bit long, but just bear with me, alright? I assure you that this is all important for later. Alright, we're ready. Again, this all comes from the CDC, links will be in the description. December 12th, 2019, a cluster of patients in Wuhan, Hubei province, China begin to experience shortness of breath and fever. December 31st, 2019, the World Health Organization China country office is informed of a number of cases, pneumonia of unknown etiology, unknown cause, detected in Wuhan, Hubei province, all cases connected to the Huanan seafood wholesale market in Wuhan. And look at that, under 40 minutes away from the Wuhan lab. January 2nd, 2020, the World Health Organization activates its incident management system across the 3 levels of World Health Organization, county office, regional office, and headquarters. January 5th, 2020, Chinese public health officials share the generic sequence of the unknown pneumonia virus, Wuhan, through an online database. I actually kind of find this one funny, because they call it Wuhan, which is basically Wuhan virus, and Donald Trump called it the Chinese virus, and people called him a racist for it. It makes no sense. January 7th, Chinese authorities identify and isolate a novel virus as the causative agent of the outbreak, and the CDC establishes a 2019 NCOV incident management structure to guide the response. It follows previously established MERS COVID preparedness, plans for developing tests and managing cases. And for those of you who think that I'm going to keep on reading these, and for those who also severely hate my voice, I can understand that by the way, I'll just flash the rest of the timeline in front of your faces instead. I understand that reading just one at a time can be a little bit tedious and boring, so in order to fix that, I'm gonna try to put as many on one slide as I can to make it easy for you guys to read, and to also take up less time, you know, just in case. Some who might question this would ask when this was last reviewed by the CDC. And for that, I say, here's your answer. Now we should talk about how effective masks are. Masks have... You know what? I'll just put up the study. Yes, this is a study from 2015 that says that penetration of cloth masks by particles was 97% and medical masks were 44%. Now you might be thinking, but empty space being fireball, isn't that a refuted study? Well, no, it hasn't been refuted, and allow me to explain why in the best way I can. For starters, take a look at the setting. Secondary level and tertiary level hospitals. For those unaware of what that means, secondary people are specialists, and tertiary specialists are even higher than secondary specialists. I mean, go ahead and call me stupid, but I find it pretty hard to believe that specialists who help to treat cancer and perform surgeries don't know how to wear a mask. Am I really the only one that finds that a little bit hard to believe? Also, the amount of viruses that they were exposed to, almost if not all of which were nowhere near as infective as coronavirus, or COVID-19, I should say, because, you know, kind of in there. The compliance was significantly higher in the cloth mask arm. I'll put it in the simplest of terms. If more people are compliant with cloth masks than with medical masks, and it's still that high of a penetration rate, then something ain't right. Now, when I say that, I mean that there's something that's not right with the people that are pushing the mask mandates all over. I mean, if the medical masks protect you, then why not have people push for wearing those types of masks? Just make more of them. And just to top it all off, the people that were behind the study from back then are suddenly now pro-mask. So, given that COVID-19 is more infectious than those viruses and can spread a lot easier than those viruses, and those masks still had a 97% penetration rate with them, then you can only imagine what it'd be like for COVID-19. This is a 60 minutes interview from March 8th of 2020 where Dr. Fauci talks with Dr. John LaPook about COVID-19. Dr. Fauci at the time said, "The masks are important for someone who is infected to prevent them from infecting someone else. Now, when you see people and look at the films in China or in South Korea or whatever, everybody's wearing a mask. Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks. Right now, people should not be, there's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is." And then on June 23rd of 2020, Fauci went on the street for an interview. When questioned by Catherine Ross, he said a few things that we should talk about. When Catherine Ross questioned him, he said, quote, "Masks are not 100% effective, you know. Masks are not 100% protective. However, they certainly are better than not wearing a mask, both to prevent you if you happen to be a person who maybe feels well but has an asymptomatic infection that you don't even know about." During the interview, when he was talking about why he said that a month or three ago, he was saying that it was because of a shortage of masks and he didn't want people to go out and buy a bunch of masks, even though these supposed cloth masks were being pushed by the same people that came up with that study as a last resort for hospitals. But then all of a sudden, a month later, masks start appearing and people are being told to wear those masks. However, the masks that do anything, they're suddenly it's just like, no, you can't wear those. There's still a shortage of those. It's like those are for healthcare workers only. But it's like the ones with a 97% penetration rate, we're still told to wear that. Doesn't that kind of contradict what he was saying before about the shortage? I mean, think of it like this. If COVID 19 really is as deadly as people claim, then don't you think that they should be making less of the cloth masks that don't work as well and more of the medical masks? So that way everybody can be protected? So something isn't quite right. So it tends to beg the question, how dangerous is COVID 19 if they're forcing us to wear masks and do all this other stuff as of right now? Well, I think we should take a deeper look into it just to see how deadly it is. Like, what's the death rate percentage? Let's find out. So, the source that I'm using here is Worldometer, that gets their information from the World Health Organization. So, for the people that push that COVID 19 is the deadliest, most unprecedented pandemic of all time, this is the most highball estimate that I can give, and I'll explain why later. So, out of 308,232,812 coronavirus cases, 5,507,719 people who were infected with it, have died. So, yeah, this is a highball estimate. Now, let's calculate the death rate, shall we? Yeah, given my estimations, I'd say that the global death rate is about 1.78%, give or take. Wait a minute. I want to do a quick comparison real quick. What is the death rate for people with influenza? Hang on, give me a second. I want to find it. 5,902 deaths per 100,000? And this is what we're trying to fight? Like, are you serious? Are you high? Like, like what? I, 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 I don't understand. I really don't. I mean, even if we were to go generous here and just use America's death rate, even then, it's still just a little bit over 1% of a mortality rate. It's like, are you serious? This is what's causing people to be scared for their lives every single day? This is the thing that's causing people to cower in fear? Really? This is why we're forced to wear a mask everywhere we go? Why we're currently forced to be vaccinated? Are you serious? That death rate? No, there's got to be something. Okay, this could be a big issue. You see, when you inflate a death rate, especially one of this caliber, it leads to a loss of credibility and therefore a loss of trust. This is why a lot of people don't actually trust these people. And from what I've seen so far, I can understand it. But this isn't over yet. Whether you think the CDC's numbers or the World Health Organization's numbers are accurate or inflated, no matter what the case is, it's still pretty low to be considered a global emergency or a national emergency. So it makes you wonder, why are we forced to wear masks and why are we forced to vaccinate for something not even that bad? Well, this is where things start to get a little bit more political. Now, there's a lot of debate on whether or not Trump handled the pandemic well. Now, early in the pandemic, Donald Trump wanted to issue a travel ban. However, you guessed it, a bunch of people tried to call him a racist for issuing a travel ban on countries with COVID in order to try to slow or halt the spread in the US. But then, here's the weird part, and here's the manipulative part. Later, they attempted to say that it wouldn't have made a difference either way, but that he still handled the pandemic horribly. Now, that could raise quite a few red flags for media organizations and for this pandemic itself. And, just to show that I'm not lying, you see xenophobic, racist, like, the list goes on. If it's really this dangerous, then they should take accountability for this mistake. Now, in order to help combat the spread of misinformation from mainstream media outlets, Trump created a COVID-19 timeline showing the events that he partook in order to help combat the virus. Though despite this, they still say that he sought to undermine it, that he didn't do anything to help combat it, he damaged science, fighting for a job that he wasn't doing, even though the timeline still contradicted him, and trying to say that he called it a hoax. However, as that timeline showed earlier, he did take steps to help fight the pandemic, but for some reason they're trying to cover them up. Now, if anything, you take a look at it and you might think to yourself, this seems more like political theater masquerading as science. And there's more evidence to this theory, don't worry. See, I told you. So, Governor Tom Wolf said that he was going to take his mask off when he would speak, and then Representative Wendy Ullman said, I will as well, just I'm waiting so that we can do a little political theater. And then after that, she says so that it's on camera. Now, I have heard counter arguments to this, saying that she was talking about some sort of bill for healthcare or whatnot. However, pretty much anything that she says after that statement could be considered political theater. And, would you know it, the full video shows her saying that we're currently in an unprecedented pandemic. So to those people who said that she didn't call masks political theater, I'll give them points for their due. You're right, she didn't call masks political theater, she called the pandemic political theater. Thanks. You just helped prove what was wrong even further. I actually really appreciate that. Again, thank you very much. Now, there's another inconsistency that I'd like to discuss regarding politics and science. So, as we know, in June, there was a BLM riot that sparked all across the US, and then afterwards, there was a spike. However, it says here, experts worried that it would lead to a spike in cases, but researchers released a report saying it did not because the protests caused more people to stay home. Now, this raises quite a few red flags for reasons that I will show on screen right now. See, according to Harvard, turns out in June of 2020, coronavirus infections spiked in at least 20 states. And some news articles, like NBC at the time, said that it wasn't them that led to the spikes and instead blamed it on people staying home, contradicting what the CDC said to do when you're sick. And for any of those who are wondering, the CDC also requests that you stay home if you have COVID-19 as well, in order to keep people from getting sick. So this is the type of thing to do, just stay home when you're sick. So why would NBC try to defend these riots, and why would they also try to say that people staying home is why there was a spike in COVID-19? Why would the CDC deny that there was a spike to begin with? I mean, this is science, right? Surely there's no politics in the science, right? Well, for those who don't know why I'm doing this yet, why I'm putting politics into this, is because right now it's playing a pretty big role on the supposed science that's been coming out. And you'd be a fool not to see it. Just saying. I wonder how many of you are asking the question, when is he going to talk about this part? Well, to answer that question, I say now. Now, as you can see here, it says that they are effective. They can keep you from getting and spreading the virus. They also say that the Moderna vaccine is 94.1% effective at preventing COVID-19 infection. However, I don't see anybody giving a good explanation for this one. And also to say that vaccines are safe, well, that's not very accurate either, just saying. Yeah, for those who would counter-argue this video with the black bold text, I would counter-argue that with the bottom part of the screenshot. Just saying. Also, another thing to understand is that this is still early data regarding the vaccine. Another thing that I found particularly interesting is that people at Pfizer admitted that natural immunity is better than being vaccinated. See what I mean? Do you see what I mean now? Yeah, like I said in the beginning, I don't really have the technical knowledge to put a video on my channel, except if I was to download it. And yeah, I can't really download YouTube videos for some reason, which is fine. It beats getting copy striked, I guess. But yeah, as you can see, he says that antibodies are probably better than... Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, well, you're just going through, like, Project Veritas. There's no way that they could be accurate. Most unorthodox. Well, there is a media outlet that said something like that. In case you're wondering, it's called Tech ARP. Hey, what do you say we take a minute and pretend to be a fact checker? And why don't we go through this article a little bit to see just how inaccurate, or quote unquote inaccurate, this Project Veritas video is according to them. Let's see. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, Project Veritas videos are always misleading. Let's see, heavily edited, in other words, propaganda, misleading overlay. Yeah, it doesn't really say anything as to why their videos are misleading. In fact, I could actually give evidence as to how Project Veritas videos are not misleading. As you can see here, Retracto 352. For those who don't know what that means that the mainstream media in total had to print out 352 retractions about Project Veritas. Basically, mainstream media calls them a propaganda machine, proprietors of misinformation, saying that they're a right-wing hit job organization. Yeah, almost every single time somebody says that and they find it, they get it retracted. Now, this one can be agreeable. Like, when videos are heavily edited, it leads to issues of credibility, which is an understandable statement, I will admit it. However, this is the video in question, and this is what he says in the video. Okay, this one here kind of just speaks for itself. If that's really the case, then why are there still why are you guys trying to push a vaccine mandate if the natural immunity is supposed to be better than the vaccination? Now, this one here I find a little bit hard to believe, considering that Nick Carl is a biochemist for Pfizer. So you can see how I wouldn't really believe this, right? And there's a little bit more. According to the British Society for Immunology, this is how a virus gets destroyed, and how the immune system helps to combat viruses. Just take a minute to read that if you want. You can pause, I have to go to the next one. Also, the interesting thing is that this kinda contradicts fact number 3, don't you think? Now, I know that there are some people that might say that it doesn't, but for those people I would like to know why. I mean, let's just give this one the benefit of the doubt real quick and say, yes, more antibodies don't mean better immunity. Sure, we can give this the benefit of the doubt. Anybody see the problem yet? For not, I'll clarify. It's the same argument that can be used against the vaccine itself. Oh yeah, nice selective quotation right there. Yeah, like, come on, did you really think that we wouldn't notice that? I mean, yes, he did say that part. However, afterwards, he talks about what the vaccine does and how it only fights against one specific part of the virus. And then when you get the virus, he talks about what getting the virus and recovering from it actually does. So it produces antibodies and talks about how it combats the virus. And then he comes to the conclusion that the antibodies are better than the vaccine. Okay, alright, this one debunked itself. Do you need proof of that? Here, I'll give you proof of that right here now. See it yet? Keep in mind that they're trying to debunk a video that's talking about a guy that's saying that the antibodies of the COVID vaccine don't match the antibodies that you would get from natural immunity. Yeah, take a look at what they said that he was. He detects the quantity of antibodies that these vaccines produce, meaning that he does technically work with these vaccines, and it also gives him even more credibility in the Project Veritas video when he's saying that the natural immunity itself is better than the vaccine. So this news media team is pretty stupid, especially if they think that they could debunk Project Veritas like this. Neither is vaccinated immunity, so what's your point? And then it brings up these statistics about natural immunity, but I could also bring up statistics that say that people are still getting infected with COVID when they're vaccinated anyway. Not to mention the death rate, which is under 2%, and the vaccinated deaths. Oh, sorry. Honestly, that last one kind of seemed like a last-ditch effort to debunk the Project Veritas video. That's what I'm thinking. So, like, throughout the entire thing, that article is obviously false, but some people will probably believe it. Who knows? Now, there was a video that was released when Marshall, who was a senator, asked Fauci yes or no would he be willing to submit a financial disclosure that included his past and current investments to see whether or not he had any investments in the vaccine. And then Fauci was saying it's like he doesn't understand why he's asking them. And then it's like, we can't find it. Can you show us this? Like, can you give it to us? It's like, it's accessible if you want it. And look how he didn't answer the question. Now remember, in the conversation that they put up, he was very defensive about it. And turns out that if you do ask for it, it'll come very slowly, apparently. An interesting thing that I find about this article is that it says that the redactions in it shroud the underlying value of the funds themselves and how long he has held the securities. However, that's not true. Now, I will give this article something. It's that it did actually give the file to people that actually click and download it. However, as you can see, the first few pages, I think up to page 5 if I remember correctly, are unredacted. And everything seems fine. Right? Right? Well, here's the thing. I don't know how many of you have read through this thing. I managed to find it, and therefore I read it, because otherwise it wouldn't be in this video. And it turns out that while it is true that a lot of the financial quantities are redacted, another thing is so are the names of the companies that he has money invested into. As you can see, redacted, redacted, redacted. That's a lot of redacted. That entire page is redacted. More redactions. Redaction, redaction. Names redacted right there. Redacted, redacted, redacted. Like, look at all of this redacted. Even the names are redacted. Look at that. Redacted again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Like, this goes on. Like, this whole thing just goes on. It's like redacted, that name was redacted, another name redacted. I mean, how about you release this unredacted? So this way we can have complete certainty that you don't have any money in any of these programs. But I highly doubt that'll happen. Heck, even Operation Mockingbird had a lot of their names redacted. The FBI files regarding the Finders cult, almost everything in it is redacted, or at least most of the valuable information inside of it redacted. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this stays redacted forever, because he's pretty secretive with his stuff. This doesn't really surprise me. He said that it's all public. However, the amount of redactions in this thing leads me to believe that he lied and that PolitiFact is trying to cover for him. You can be the judge on that. I already decided. Now, there's the other idea that Fauci, the NIH, or the NIAID funded gain-of-function research in the Wuhan lab at some point. However, Fauci was mistaken and tried to instead say that they never ever funded gain-of-function research. And if they did, that it was according to their guidelines. Here, I'll quote it. In this video, he says, quote, "Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute." Now, when he was questioned if he funds Dr. Barrick's gain-of-function research, Ralph Barrick, by the way, he says this, quote, "Dr. Barrick does not do gain-of-function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina and not China." What Fauci didn't tell him was that Barrick was working on virus transcription, replication, persistence, and transmissibility with different animals to human beings as well, which under their definition would qualify as gain-of-function research. However, they still chose not to qualify it as gain-of-function research for the level of risk. Another thing that a lot of people I've heard recently who defend what Fauci has been doing try to say that the level of risk was high, but for some reason that still doesn't qualify as gain-of-function, and even then they still can't explain why. Now, when Rand Paul questioned him and asked why, when did they send money to the Wuhan lab, that he asked why, and Fauci said that they didn't, and then Rand Paul said that we sent money through the EcoHealth Alliance. Fauci then said, "Let me explain to you why we did. The SARS virus, COVID-1, originated from bats in China. It would be irresponsible if we didn't investigate the bat viruses and the serology to see who might have been infected." End quote. This is the research that Fauci admitted to that was happening in North Carolina. And this is what they were funding in Wuhan. So just pause and read those. So when you take the time to read that, it said that the experiments that they were doing were trying to see if those bat viruses were able to infect humans as well. That was the whole purpose of the experiment. They were trying to say that it's not that it wouldn't be defined as gain-of-function research because it isn't dangerous to humans, contradicting their own definition from before. So, yeah, that's a little bit suspicious. And when I say a little bit, I mean very, very suspicious. That's just complete neglect of responsibility at best and manipulation at worst. Honestly, we should take a look at this letter as well. This was a letter that was calling to investigate the claims that Fauci was making, and there's a lot of redacted stuff in this one too. And honestly, what should happen is that he should be questioned about what is in these, redactions. Like, who are the names of these people? Should they be brought in for questioning? This is something that we should know. These people shouldn't get off scot-free if they're actually behind something like this. I mean, Fauci already lied. He already committed perjury. That was overwhelmingly obvious. But if anything in this letter is true, then this is a very strong case against Fauci and his friends. So, with all that said, Is this pandemic political theater? Probably. Is the virus real? Of course. However, is it overplayed, and is this pandemic political theater? I would say so. So let's just recap every single question that I'm going to ask. So, why would politicians say that the pandemic is political theater? How come it took a virus with a 1% mortality rate to wear masks as opposed to one that's like 5 times worse? Why attack Trump when he was trying to help prevent the spread early on? And then why backpedal and say that he didn't do anything to begin with? Why attempt to say that secondary level and tertiary level hospitals don't know how to wear a mask or clean it properly? Why push for normal people to wear masks that don't actually help prevent that virus? I mean, if masks can be made quickly, then why not just make more of the medical masks that protect everybody? The virus is that dangerous, right? Why is it okay to inflate this death rate? Why try to push incomplete estimates as fact? Why would the CDC deny that there was a spike in June of 2020, despite Harvard and mainstream media outlets saying that there was a spike in COVID cases? Why would somebody who studies the quantity of antibodies inside of the vaccine say that natural immunity is better than the vaccine itself? Why would media outlets contradict themselves in order to debunk this claim? How did the virus start so close to the Wuhan lab? That's also something that needs to be addressed. Why would Fauci lie about his financial disclosures being public? Why would scientists be 50-50 on the lab leak theory if it's not true? Why would Fauci say that Dr. Barrick doesn't do gain-of-function research and then backpedal and say that it was according to the guidelines that they implemented? And also the fact that he admitted to doing so himself. Why push a vaccine if it doesn't do anything that we were promised that it does? Why does Fauci condone the restriction of the distribution of knowledge? And also, when questioned by Rand Paul, he said that he doesn't support gain-of-function research, but it's pretty clear that he does, so why would he lie about that? I mean, if this whole idea of conspiracy theories is a problem, then why not just unredact all of these, or just answer the questions that are given to you? Wouldn't that kind of help to bring international harmony? Why does the FDA need 55 years to release vaccine data? If the vaccine really was as effective as they claim, then why are masks still forced all throughout the country? And finally, if Fauci didn't fund gain-of-function research as he claimed, then how come his emails, colleagues, and multiple reports from both right and left-leaning sources contradict him? Why? Truth be told, I don't think that we're even going to get a good answer to this. The answers that we've gotten so far aren't very good. But, hey, who knows? Maybe there will be a good conclusion to this. Maybe not. Well, anyway, bye.